Welcome to Why Is This Good, a podcast by the Naples Writers Workshop. I'm Christine and I'm here with John. Hey, John.
Hello.
All right, John, you picked a story. What is it?
I picked the story Wikihistory by Desmond Warzel. International Association of Time Travelers, Members Forum, Subforum, Europe, 20th Century, Second World War, page 263, 11/15/2104. At 1452-28, Freedom Fighter 69 wrote, reporting my first temporal excursion since joining IATT. Have just returned from 1936 Berlin, having taken the place of one Leni Riefenstahl's cameraman and assassinated Adolf Hitler during the opening of the Olympic Games. Let a free world rejoice. At 1457-44, Silver Fox 316 wrote, back from 1936 Berlin, incapacitated Freedom Fighter 69 before he could pull his little stunt. Freedom Fighter 69, as you are a new member, please read IATT Bulletin 1147 regarding the killing of Hitler before your next excursion. Failure to do so may result in your expulsion per bylaw 223. At 1806-59, Big Chill wrote, take it easy on the kid, Silver Fox 316. Everybody kills Hitler on the first trip. I did. It always gets fixed within a few minutes. What's the harm? At 1833-10, Silver Fox 316 wrote, easy for you to say, Big Chill, since to my recollection, you've never volunteered to go back and fix it. You think I've got nothing better to do? 11/16/2104. At 10/15/44, Judge Doom wrote, good news. I just left a French battlefield in October 1916, where I shot dead a young Bavarian army messenger named Adolf Hitler. Not bad for my first time, no? Sic semper tyrannis. At 10/22/53, Silver Fox 316 wrote, back from 1916 France I come, having at the last possible second prevented Hitler's early demise at the hands of Judge Doom, and, incredibly, restrained myself from shooting Judge Doom and sparing us all years of correcting his misguided antics. Read Bulletin 1147, people. At 1541-18, Barracks Room Lawyer wrote, point of order, issues related to Hitler's service in the Bavarian army ought to go in the World War I forum.
How'd you come across this one?
Years and years ago, somehow came across it. I heard a conversation about it, some forum, a podcast or an interview or something like that, and looked it up and then just kept going back to it every once in a while. Considered bringing it to the podcast for a long time, but
yeah,
I never did. And then recently I realized it's almost exactly 1,000 words long, which means it's flash fiction. I was like, well, we talk about flash fiction sometimes, and what is flash fiction? So I thought this might be a good entry onto that conversation.
I didn't even think about that when I was reading it. I just thought to myself, like, this is short and funny. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. And that's kind of why, I mean, I always say this, like, to myself, like, I don't know what I have to say about this story, except for, kind of short comments like that. I'm sure we'll talk ad nauseum, but usually it's like shorter stories like that are just kind of like simple and enjoyable. Like, you're just supposed to enjoy reading it, that I feel like I have the least to say about, because they're not trying to do anything insane. But this one was definitely fun. Like, when I finished it, I was like, kind of laughing to myself, like the exact audience for this story. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very particular premise and concept and humor. You have to be smart enough to know what's going on historically, and then, like, be willing to go with like this kind of sci-fi idea of like time travel.
Also have to like understand internet fora and how they work, and like the kinds of characters you meet on them. Like the last part where I read with the Barracks Room Lawyer, point of order, you're in the wrong forum. Like that's like a familiar kind of person in these.
Oh yeah, the person cracking the whip and keeping everyone in line. They're such a buzzkill. Moderators usually are. I know from experience. Yeah, you're right. So you also have to be familiar with these kinds of forums and not totally thrown off by the format of this story, which I was initially. So when you read it, you weren't reading like, I don't know, did you read all the dates and all the times?
I read all the dates and all the times because I think they're all part of the text.
They're all part of it. I kind of like black out when I listen, and even when I look at it, I'm kind of like black blacking out because it's how you read a forum. You don't read the date and time. They're usually chronological. Yeah, you're just kind of like skimming.
When I was preparing for this, I went back and forth. I was like, I think I have to read that. I think I have
to, because
it is part of the like word count. It's part of what creates this as a thing. He wrote it. It's not like this was auto-generated by some PHP script on a server.
You had to do work. Exactly. Yeah, that's a funny point too. Yeah. So okay, it has an exact audience, and because it's like short and sweet, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was trying to like make some kind of grand statement. It's just kind of like one of those playful stories. Like whoever came up with it was like, that'd be funny. And then did it. And then like, executed it pretty well. And then this is definitely one though that because it's like so straightforward and unique, like I'll remember it, I'm not going to remember it and be like, oh, you should read this thing necessarily, but I'll be like, that reminds me of a very similar format. Like you should try messing around with this.
And it's not just one idea either, because it starts off with what I read with like the time traveler kind of paradox of don't kill Hitler because it's going to do all this and then it moves on to a different issue, and then it ends with another issue, and it sprinkling in that barracks room lawyer character, also gives it a different aspect. So it's not just a single idea executed in one piece of flash fiction. It's like several ideas kind of layered in on each other.
Right. Yeah, it's fun. And obviously I like the plot too, right? The plot is about, I guess, like people that can travel in time. But the fact that this is called like Wikihistory, I don't know. This was my reading on it by the end of it. I was like, okay, these people are actually traveling back in time. They're all actually doing the things that they said that they were going to do. They're all correcting everyone else's actual actions in the past where I killed Hitler, I killed Hitler's dad or whatever. I stopped the war. But then like I remember that the title was Wikihistory and I was like, are these people just editing Wikipedia pages? Which is also something that did you know what I mean? Anyone and their mother can edit a Wikipedia page and it sometimes takes seconds for it to be corrected. And it's because so many people are on Wikipedia, so like all day long spotting this stuff, and it's like curated by the masses. And I know they've gotten more strict about this, but you can edit pages and change it. So when I saw Wikihistory, I was like, wait, is this a time traveler thing or are they joking about changing Wikipedia pages?
No, I think it's just these, because they're time travelers and they have the interaction of these forum posts suggests that they have a freedom in the way they time travel and what they can do. And I think so because of that, they're treating history as if it were Wikipedia. They're editing history. Okay. And then Silver Fox 316 has to go back, just like, you might lock down a Wikipedia page or something, or a bunch of people come to vandalize it and somebody goes back and reverts it. He's like the moderator style of history, and then he has to go back and fix things. So I think it's just kind of a play on that idea of what a wiki is, because it's collaboratively edited.
Yeah, right.
And
that's a good point.
This is semi-collaboratively in this case because some of it's antagonistic.
Yeah. It's funny too, because for this particular plot, if they actually, so sticking with the idea that they actually are time traveling and, they're calling it this because like you said, it's a collective editing of the history. This is the exact thing that people talk about when they talk about time traveling, like we've all had that conversation. I don't even know where the idea originates, like what was the first like pop culture reference where they talked about like, oh, I'm time traveling and like while I'm at it, I'm going to kill Hitler.
Yeah, that question. What's the first thing you do when you invent time travel?
Yeah, everybody
it's
is
not
familiar
kill Hitler,
with that.
You're a monster.
Yeah. And I like that this kind of plays it out to it runs with the bit a little further. Yeah. And then when I'm reading it originally, I was like, I don't know if this is going to like run out of steam. Maybe they've thought of all the possible things. But then this other commenter chimes in and he's like, you think Hitler killed a lot of people? Like, you are sorely
racist.
Yeah. First of all, you're racist.
That plays out. It's like, you're nothing but a pack of racists. And then the next guy, Big Tom 44, wrote, well, here we frickin' go.
Yeah, racist for killing Hitler, WTF. I mean, and this is a commentary called Asian Avenger.
Yes.
But they're talking about time traveling to 1814 China to kill this horrible leader that like ended up killing, it says 50 million lives. And then they kind of spur Asian Avenger on. They're like, well, why don't you do it? Like, you're on this forum, you can time travel. Why don't you go back and do it? Like, stop complaining about Hitler and go fix it yourself. And they're like, all right, I will. And then they don't hear from that person again. And And it's because they were like a descendant of that evil figure. And that's what happens when you change time. So I thought it was a pretty funny way to end it, right? Like it didn't just like run with the Hitler bit too far. Someone else chimes in, redirects, and then they see like one of these very funny consequences of being so self-righteous about how you should handle time travel. You know, it's just like a stick it to you moment where it's like, well, it serves you right.
Any volunteers to go back and stop him from negating his own existence?
No.
Anyone? Point of order, this discussion belongs in the Qing Dynasty Forum. We're adults. Can we keep sight of what's important around here? I like that ending.
Yeah, it was a pretty clever concept to have that be the twist. And then, for that to be the ending, to just kind of be like, back to the original point of this is so chaotic.
Is important
nothing will
here?
Nothing will be solved by this forum. Like, if you're looking for answers in a forum, like, good luck.
There's a little bit of social commentary in that last comment, too. Can we keep sight of what's important around here? It's like, well, what
someone losing their life?
What do you think is important, Nick? The mass extermination of entire populations or individual lives or the forum
following
rules?
The rules of a forum. I think we're all pretty clear on what's important, and I am definitely among that group where it's like we agree on rules as a society, and if we start to break them, things like those massive rebellions happen. So let's start with the little rules. Yeah, so this is definitely fun. And it is flash fiction, right? This is one of those things where, if you came up with the idea and you're like, I'm just going to try it out, see what happens, you might kind of wonder like how long you can get away with it. And you said it's about 1,000 words.
I think it's almost exactly 1,000.
Yeah, that's about as much as I want to read. You know what I mean? Like, this could have gone on like a lot longer and maybe had like more plot to it, You
could do that. It would stretch the way how you read it. But I think if you made it, you have to layer in a lot more stuff to do that. But And
this, I think, is sort of the perfect length for what it did attempt to do, which was like, here's a taste of this forum, what they're talking about and the whole concept of time travel. And then like, here's a funny way to kind of like leave you, to let you finish out the scene. Yeah, I thought it was like kind of the perfect ending, the perfect place to end it.
This made me think of our YouTube exclusive episode where we talked about that baby shoes for sale story. And you brought up, and then you mentioned it was like the form of that 6-word story is classified, right?
Yeah.
And so you get a lot just from knowing that it's a classified, like a lot of extra information, a lot of background material that you bring to it comes from that assumption.
Knowledge. Yeah,
that knowledge. This does exactly the same thing, except with internet fora.
Right.
The way we understand these people as being individual characters arises by the way in which we understand internet fora, the way a forum works and the way that people interact with it.
Right.
So it's doing the same thing that baby shoes story did, just on a different scale, with a different format.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I'm going to struggle with the takeaway other than what I mentioned about dialogue. But one of the takeaways, and I'm sure that was our takeaway for the baby shoes story, is like, that's one easy way to think about like a story idea in general. And I'm not saying like you should shoehorn your concept into something like a forum outline, but if you're looking for like fun ways to tell a story, or you just have writer's block and you want to like see something, this is like a fun prompt, so to think of like, it could be like a Twitter thread or a Facebook thread comment section. It could be like an email chain. That's pretty common. Like we've all seen email chain stories or letter stories, and especially when it comes to when it comes to like letter stories, those are really underestimated in terms of like the difficulty. I think they all are, but people think like, oh, I'll just like tell a story with friends writing letters to each other. And it's like, it's really hard to weave in like pertinent information when people are writing in a format like that.
Presumed common knowledge. How do you make a character talk about what they know their interlocutor already knows? It's like, that's the problem with Maid and Butler dialogue is, as you know, Butler, both know they know that. They don't have to talk about it, but they do it anyway just to give us the information. And
it's terrible.
Problem. That's why it doesn't work.
Well, people think it works.
But that is a pitfall for letters, exchange of letters.
Right. People, when they write letters to each other, are not necessarily writing letters about the story of their lives, just like you wouldn't expect this forum story to go into backstory necessarily for any of these individuals. Like the idea is that they're all strangers and they come here to talk about their common interest, that's why like forums are so wild, because pretty much the only thing you have in common with some of these nut jobs is whatever very specific topic you're talking about.
One thing I was going to say about if you choose like a format, like the classified or the forum exchange, like this story did, or whatever it happens to be, Twitter thread, Facebook post. One thing that this story does, it's not just taking an idea and kind of jamming it in there. And that's what you said. You said, don't just shoehorn an idea into some random format. It was because what this story actually does is it takes what the forum is, and like, if you can say it has a theme, part of the theme is a commentary on forum, like how they work and the kinds of people that are in them, the kinds of interactions you find in them. So I think the concept of a forum informed the structure, not just the structure of the story, but the content of it as well, the way the characters interact, the kinds of characters you're going to find in it, and the kinds of conflicts and interactions you're going to get out of this, a story set or performed this way. So if our takeaway were to be select some sort of format for your story, make sure you're not, like you said, just shoehorning in your idea into a random format. Make sure that your story kind of reflects on that format in such a way as to say something about it.
Right, exactly. I think that's why this would be a good idea for like a prompt, and less about like forcing yourself to think of a format so that you can try it. Like, just tell yourself you're going to write a forum story and just like kind of see what comes out of that, even if you don't keep it in that format. Yeah, I mean, we've given like 1,000 examples by this point of types of formats that you could follow, and they're all based on how humans communicate with each other. So think about all the venues where we talk to each other.
I want to be careful not to say it's not just the shape of the story because it's put in that format. It's the shape of what happens because of the way in which that format influences communication.
Yes.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to talk about was, we mentioned it earlier, like whether or not I should read out loud all these numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I pointed out that he had to write all of that. And so if you pick a format like this, I wouldn't just do it randomly. I would spend time with all of like what could be considered paratext, but is actually part of the text. It's actually part of the story because it creates the format that you're working in. Even the dates, the fact that he put it in 2104, the fact that it's in late afternoon, evening, like you can track the time each of these are made. Like Freedom Fighter comes on at 2:52 in the afternoon, and then Big Chill doesn't respond to this until a couple hours later. So he made those little decisions in writing, picking the numbers and how it's, even the fact that it's in 24-hour format, stuff like that. But it's a choice as well. And another thing, the names, he wrote the names, he chose the names. So basic point being, like, pay very close attention to all of those little details when you're writing this kind of thing.
Right. And you can think of, how that would apply to like a letter writing thing, the
Absolutely.
date, the time, how you sign it, how you send off.
Whether or not it's broken up, like, pardon me, but visitors are here. I need to continue this letter later. And then it comes back. I could not return to this letter until the following morning. Yeah. It has been 2 days.
However you do it, like, attention to detail is how you make it authentic. But to your point, like, the more authentic you are, the more it can add to the storytelling.
Yep, exactly.
Do you have a takeaway then?
My takeaway is, it's what you suggested our takeaways would be, is play around with format. Yeah. And I said the kind of comments I wanted to say about that is, there's lots of different kinds of format, and you pay attention to what seems like extraneous text. Sure. We talked about whether or not I should read those titles, and like at 1452-28, Freedom Fighter 69 wrote has the same visibility on the page as like Freedom Fighter 69 said would in dialogue. You kind of, your eye takes note of it, but you don't read it consciously. Yeah. So yeah, that's my takeaway, is just, it'd be fun. Do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a good prompt to give yourself if you're familiar with one of these formats pretty well. I'll go back to kind of what I said about how formats like this one, I think, are they're kind of like a petri dish for how people talk to each other, right? This might be a way that people converse only within a forum, but it also tells you a lot about people in general, right?
Oh yeah.
We talk about dialogue all the time, authentic dialogue, Maiden Butler is not authentic, but this is super authentic. This is people like struggling to communicate. I think the more characters struggle to communicate, the more authentic it is. People are not articulate and they don't say what they mean or even what they really think.
Yeah. And then this kind of interaction also has a level of performativity that the kind of ordinary speech that you might try to capture in dialogue doesn't always have.
Yeah, this is extremely curated.
Yeah, there's different levels that you can play with just depending on the kind of format you're writing in. Like, if you post, this is it's a public forum. Well, it is the International Association of Time Travelers members forum. So whether that's posted for anyone to read or if it's only internal to the association is an unanswered question. But if you're going to write something in this kind of style, that's the kind of thing to think about. Is the way the character understands his own locution, the own speaking or typing or
Yeah,
performance.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
we didn't really touch on that, but that's absolutely right.
There's this one moment where Silver Fox it's such a well-rounded character, even though we only get it from these like brief little postings, because Silver Fox is the one that's always going back in time and fixing everything. It's very much that I got to do everything character. But when he writes this, he writes, I secured the expulsion of Hitler from the academy by means of an elaborate prank involving the prefect, a goat, and a substantial quantity of olive oil. That kind of detail, he's the kind of character who would say that, who would put that detail into that moment. Like, that is not necessary. He could just say, I fixed it.
Right.
But he's performing it. He's performing like what he did. He's telling it as a joke almost. Right. So that gives you a little extra, like a different way of seeing him as a character as well.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, consider joining our Patreon. Your support helps us keep the show running. Find out more at patreon.com/whyisthisgoodpodcast. And for industry news, writing tips, and great short fiction, join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Naples Writers Workshop. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter at napleswritersworkshop.com.